Hey everyone, welcome back to my podcast, Turn Your Pain into Purpose. I'm on episode 6 and I'm here with my lovely friend Monica. I'm really excited to have her. She's been such just an inspiration to me, and it's more than that. It's just been a deeper connection with her. Every time I talk to her, there's so much I learned from her. There's just a genuine, loving soul that she has. And so she's always putting in her beautiful energy into me, and I really do appreciate that. So I really wanted to bring her on because I feel that her voice has to be heard. She has a lot of angel connection. I feel that she just has to share with the world. I feel there's so many women and men that need to hear what she has to say, and so I'll be asking her a few questions. Stay tuned, listen to it all, be present with us. We want to make sure that you guys really just get connected with yourself. I feel like it's very important to not just skip and not listen, and really just actually take in on what we're saying, and I think it will help you with whatever that you may be going through. Obviously with my podcast, it's Turn Your Pain into Purpose, is because I had a lot of pain and I'm healing through that, and Monica has helped me with that healing journey. There's things that she has told me and it's helped my healing. So this journey is beautiful, and I'm excited to have you on. So thank you for having me.
Yes. I don't know if you know this, but I actually made a t-shirt that says Pain and Purpose. It was the first one I ever made. I just realized that right now.
That's so crazy.
I'm going to show it to you after.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah. I think that's one of the most profound realizations of my life, was realizing that no pain had to go in vain. Nothing did not serve a purpose in my life. And if I could find a purpose for it, then there was some value to that experience.
Yeah.
That's one of the greatest lessons of my life.
So this is why I like talking. I'm this is the exact reason why I love talking.
Right? I don't like wasting things,
yeah.
I don't like wasting my energy. So if you're going to go through something painful, why not come out of it with something that's purposed, you know?
Right. And I think that's sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow.
Absolutely.
A lot of people want to stay in the victim, oh, well, poor me, or I can't get out of this, or this happened to me when I was younger, so I can't move forward. And I did this podcast and I named it that way is because you can instantly make those changes.
Instantly. I mean, I'm the queen of victim mentality. I have a long list of things that have happened to me, and a wide range of them. You name it and I probably went through it. And I think before I found my recovery process, everything was happening to me. Nothing was happening for me, and I am who I am today because of the accumulation of these experiences, including the painful ones. And so for me, coming out of victim mentality was really hard because it was my identity. Right? Oh, I was raped. Oh, this happened to me. Oh, I was homeless. Oh, I had a drug problem. And as long as I could hide under that umbrella of all these things that happened to me, there was no real accountability necessary.
Yeah.
And so victim mentality is hard to get out of because people don't want to take the power back and understand that they can react the way that they choose to. They can empower their lives the way that they want to.
Yeah.
If they're willing to let go of the fact that what happened to them is done, and now it's what are you going to do in response to it?
Yeah.
How
did you get to that point though of being okay, I'm not going to use that as my story anymore?
Oh, bumping my head 7,000 times. I tried the victim card too long, and when COVID hit, I was in the middle of my addiction. I was in the middle of taking a break from my career. I was working 4 jobs, and I was miserable. I was spiritually bankrupt, I couldn't look myself in the mirror, and I had a long list of people that were responsible for this misery, and it wasn't until, I know COVID was a terrible time for a lot of people, but for me, it was the universe telling me to sit down, be still, and don't do anything, but sit with yourself. And when I sat with myself, I realized how much power I had in all the situations and experiences that I was in, and how much I didn't do for myself, for starters, I had to get clean and clear my mind and sober up, right? Like that was my first mission. And that part, in itself eliminated a lot of the shame and guilt I had around the way that I was coping with these painful experiences, these traumas, these losses, and the grief that I was going through. So once I cleared that out, I could start to look at where I was creating my chaos, But I didn't do it willingly, and I didn't do it alone. I did it with help. I'm part of a 12-step program, as you know. And part of that program is taking an inventory of ourselves, seeing the role we play in our lives, and it was a slow process, but little by little I realized, okay, you were raped, but what will you do with that? What type of woman do you want to be after that? And for a long time I sabotaged relationships. I sabotaged my self-worth. I devalued myself, and doing therapy and journaling and writing and sitting down with those experiences alone and with my higher power allowed me to see where I was letting those experiences absolutely contaminate the woman I was.
Yeah.
And there was healing in that. There was healing in identifying that, that fucked me up.
Yeah.
And there's a thing with victim mentality. I feel like some people are afraid to step out of victim mentality and take accountability, but I also think there's some people who are afraid to identify as victimized or as hurt because they don't want to look vulnerable or weak. And I was like a pendulum between those two.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be a victim, but I also didn't want to be vulnerable and admit that had affected me the way that it did. I wanted to believe that I was my own woman in the middle of all of the self-sabotage and pain that I was causing myself, So sitting down with it, acknowledging it, facing it, identifying it as it was big.
Yeah.
And forgiving myself was huge. And then I could step into what I want today to look like,
Yeah.
what I want now to look like, what I want to be moving forward, because that shit's done already.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it is any less impactful, but just it's the past.
Yeah.
I honor it, but at the same time, where am I going today?
Right.
What do I want to be right now? Because I don't want to be that person sabotaging my own soul forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a process.
It is.
I mean, it's easier said than done for sure.
Yeah.
But you got to have a little courage and a little discomfort.
I think discomfort is what people don't like, and so when they get comfortable, it's easy to just like, oh, I'll stay here and I'll be comfortable, and people could feel sorry for me, and so it's okay because I'm still getting like love or attention in other ways, other substances. Like they are okay with what's happening instead of really sitting down with it and going through those emotions and saying, hey, you know what, I do have a problem. Like there's something I need to change.
Yeah, it's like that saying, like, not all money is good money.
Mm-hmm.
Not all attention is good attention.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people gave me a lot of like a free pass.
Yeah.
Like when my ex-husband became sick, like there was a lot of grace that people gave me because I was going through such grief, that at some point, like every time I did something that was self-sabotaging or self-destructive, there was always this umbrella of like, well, she's going through it. Oh, well, this is happening to her.
Yeah.
And I knew that. And I got to ride that for a really long time.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like I was really only harming myself,
Right.
harming others in the process, right? Like people suffered watching me suffer.
Yeah.
And so when I did end up sitting still, like I realized like, I could either change or I could just continue, and I personally didn't want to die spiritually bankrupt. Like, I was telling you earlier, like if you had all the money in the world and you had the house and you have all these physical possessions, but you aren't content in the experience of them, then it's worthless.
Right.
It's not worth anything. And I was living my life like that before COVID hit. It really was. I had jobs, I had money, I was traveling, and but everything was a mix of chaos inside me.
Right.
There was no peace.
Yeah.
There was no looking myself in the mirror and feeling like, hey, I like that girl.
You can. Yeah.
I didn't have that, and that is invaluable to me today. But it took opening up that chamber in my heart and be like, what's going on in there, dude?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
Really, what's going on there, and how much is it really everyone else's fault?
Right.
Because it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
So.
I feel like with myself, so I actually haven't talked about this, and it's not something that like, oh, was planning to bring up, but I've brought up to a couple of friends that I'm very close with, and so I had, explained to them that I actually was raped when I was a teen and I was younger, and it was from my, it's so hard for me to say because it's like people will know, but like, at that age and at that time, it's like wanting to be heard and be like seen and be like, so you don't know, right? And then it's not like it was an over and over effect, right? It was just something that like one thing happened, and then now I'm like, okay, now I have to hush it and put it under the rug, and it's okay because now I have to live my day to day. But I don't ever, as being a 32-year-old, I don't ever go back to that moment and be like, that's what happened to me, and this is why, like, da da da, and like this is the reasons why I am, I've never done that. And I think for me it was more like, hey, that did happen to me, and I know that whatever was not right in a situation, but I can't blame my mom, I can't blame my family, I can't blame the people that surrounded me with love. I can't make that as my blame game, right? I can't be like, hey, I blame everyone else. Was I hurt? Was I sad? Did I feel not loved? Of course, but I couldn't put that blame on other people. And for me, it was like, where am I at today? And let's just say it was like in my teens. I remember being in like high school, not feeling worthy enough, but never talking about the situation, never bringing it up, never, like, it was just like it never happened, like nothing just ever happened. And so it's like I don't put the blame on it, but I do wish to be heard, because I knew that was something I was dealing with for years and years and years. And so you mentioned about counseling and getting help, and I think if we did talk about it, if we did bring it up, if we did, hey, even if they weren't accepting of it, they didn't believe you, because I do hear that a lot too. Well, they're not going to believe me. They're not.
Or if it's a relative or someone, people have very different perspectives. Not everybody wants to deal with such a big drama in the house, in the home. Unfortunately, some people don't get the freedom to share it and be embraced. It's like, it's a very challenging topic.
It is.
But if you do review it in therapy or talking to other people who have experienced something similar, the great thing that you get from that, without victimizing yourself, is identifying that made a huge shift. Like, even if it happened once, right? Like, your mind shifted in that moment and in that experience. You became a different route. Like, all of our brain and our thoughts are formulated from our experiences, and we're impacted by these things. So yeah, absolutely, you were affected from that day, and something in you shifted. Like, your value changed to something more physical, right? Not being heard, you felt silenced, or however you were received in that experience. You start to question yourself. All of these things changed who Andrea became from that point forward. It's important to recognize it, because you can untangle those thoughts. You can reprogram your mind today as a woman, right? Like, okay, I am not the sum of my body. I am not only the value of what I can provide sexually to someone, and they're very sensitive topics to think about. But we did develop from that experience some type of formulation of what we think we're good for. For me personally, I understood myself as a woman who needed to be desired or needed to be attractive in a sexual nature. From that point forward, I was only 13. So I went into high school thinking, like, this is what I have to offer. This is what deems me as a good woman if I'm desirable. And my mentality was formulated around that experience. And so untangling that as an adult woman and trying to value myself for all the other features that I have, all of the other characteristic traits, my soul, my heart, that shit took years to develop, because of that experience. But if I would have stayed in that happened to me and that's who I am and that's just the way that I am, then I wouldn't have the beautiful experience of knowing who I am today as a woman, what I can offer friends, what I can offer myself, what I can offer my life and my purpose. But that's stepping out of that victim mentality and taking my power back. And realizing, hey, I'm reprogramming that plan. That's that was a thought that was planted, and I refuse it, and I don't believe that anymore. And the days that I wake up and go back into that mentality, I have to just tell myself, you're worth more than your body.
Right. Yeah, and it's not going those days without talking about that. I think that's something I wish I would have talked about way back then, and getting that help that I needed at that time, because I think it's something that needs to be spoken about, and it needs to be helped. And if that's anything, that's something that you're going through, feel safe to reach out to someone that you do feel safe with.
Absolutely.
And not let the years go by thinking like it's okay because I'm worth this. And I think that it's very, very hard to ask for someone's help, anyone's help at that point. So that was like a really good topic.
Yeah, it really is. And with today's society and culture, it's such a fine line too, because I think there's a lot of people out there sending the message that you can't say victim mentality or you need to get over it. And I just want to say for anyone who's listening who might have experienced that, and as two women who are sitting here with that experience, you do whatever the fuck you need to do to heal and to empower yourself again. And if it's, you need to talk about it more, talk about it more. If you need to take a break from it and revisit it, later with the therapist, do that. If you need to tell yourself that you are here and that was then, I don't think that any woman's process is linear in this. Everyone's had a different experience with sharing it, not sharing it. People know about it, don't know about it. So I'm very verbal, I'm very vocal, I'm very open, but if you're that girl that's quiet and doesn't like to talk about it, that's okay too. You do you, boo. Like, that's what I tell people in that whole arena, because all of us heal a little bit differently, and my circumstances might not be the same as someone else's. Right? Some people don't have a supportive family. Some people don't have a best friend. Some people can't afford a therapist. So I just like to say that because I want whoever's been through that to know that they deserve to take their power back. Right. But until they're ready, the most important thing is to love yourself. Right. And to validate that that's a difficult experience, period.
And like how she's exactly said is like in your own process. Yeah. Absolutely. So for me, it was like I was dealing it with in my own timing and my own process. I was going through things and I didn't want to talk about it. And I had friends, I'd be like, talk about it, share about it. Like, not so much of, the raping and all of that, those things, but personal things that I was going through with my ex-husband, the divorce, my, relationship with my son's dad, and like how abusive that was. My ex-boyfriend, like the abuse in that relationship, like people around me were telling me to vocalize something that I wasn't ready to deal with. I wasn't ready.
Well, how could you vocalize something you haven't identified quite yet?
Yeah. I was going through my own hurt. I was going through my own pain. Like, I don't want to share my story because I'm still hurting. I'm still in this pain. How can I share that? So I'm glad you brought that up, because I think we need to just do it in our own way. That's important.
It's the inward journey, and I think a lot of times what's happening is people are projecting their own experiences onto you, or their own fears, or their own ideologies on you. And so if someone sees you hurting, they want you to hurry up and feel better because it hurts them to see you hurt. Yeah. And so they want to give you what they think will fix it. And I think it's a sincere intention, but the reality is that that's something you couldn't probably express quite yet because you were still identifying your own role in your pain. And as we get older, we begin to take more accountability, or we begin to understand things differently. Every season, every experience, we're a new version of ourselves in that. Like your first relationship modified your thinking or your experience, and then the second one, and then, and so on. And so I think the thing that I've learned is that isolation is a dangerous place. So don't isolate. Right. You need to communicate to some degree, right? So that you don't fall into a place where you feel alone, or you feel like there's no way out, and things like that. So that's important. But as far as the healing process, we get there when we get there. Yeah. Especially those of us who are actively seeking it. Right. Even those of us that are on the sprint, like, I want to hurry up and heal from this. Yeah. Your ass is gonna be slowed down anyways. Yeah. Because it doesn't work like that. Yeah. You can't make a scab hurry up and heal.
Right. And it's okay to allow that process to happen within your own timing, whatever it is that you feel that you're doing at that moment, whether it's meditating, journaling, going to church, or what helps you. Don't stop doing it because you don't see the healing. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
For me, I was like, I'm doing all of these things, and I'm trying to work on myself, and I'm like, when does that stop? When do you feel better?
Oh, it's funny that you say that, because I was talking to my boyfriend about the healing process in relationships, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so everybody goes through a breakup, and we all go into this self-love phase afterwards, right? We're like, I'm gonna heal up, the glow up, right? And our culture is taught that. Like, we're working on ourselves. You know when you
that
know,
revenge body, because all of you women be doing. I'm gonna get that revenge
I'm in
body.
the gym.
I was one of those.
Yeah, all of us have.
Yeah.
And if we're not in the gym, we're in in our careers trying to grow up ambitiously, or we're doing whatever we think we need to project outwardly that we are okay, we have revived, we have recovered, we're not suffering from you, right? And the reality is the healing process really shows its ugly face when you get into your next relationship. Because how do you heal interpersonal relationships if you aren't practicing with a partner? So for me, it's like, yes, I'm healing when I'm alone after a breakup, I'm healing whatever I experienced in that partnership or that relationship, right? Mm-hmm. But like I was telling my boyfriend, like we didn't know how good or bad we were or where we needed to fine tune ourselves until we got back into another relationship. Yeah. And so like when I'm experiencing the challenges with asking for what I need, because I've been in relationships where my needs weren't put as a priority, it's like when I start crying or I'm asking with attitude or I'm acting out, there's my growth. There's where I need to heal. There's where I need to, receiving and being in a safe space to say, babe, I really need you to just listen to me right now. I don't need advice, or I need this, or can you just give me a minute? Right. So I know that I've healed because I'm in a relationship now where I feel safe enough to ask for what I need. Right. I don't feel insecure about taking up space, and I couldn't say that about the last relationship or the one before that. Right. So like healing certain things with relationships, it's like the practice comes in the practicing is actually being engaged in a relationship. You can be single and speak a lot about relationships. Yeah. But when you get into the relationship, then you actively have to practice whatever it is you think you might have learned or healed. Right.
And with that, I feel like it's like vocalizing. You said at the beginning, I'm able to vocalize, this is what I need. Yeah. And I mean, we were talking about it before, it's like vocalizing those needs. And I think when we get in a relationship, so many things are like hidden, the communication isn't there, nothing's vocalized. Like, oh, well, this is what I needed and this is what I had said, but like you didn't do that. So like, it's just like, oh, it's shut down. Like things aren't going to be perfect. But if you just keep vocalizing and keep repeating,
can you be authentic? Yeah. Can you stay centered and being honest about what's happening while it's happening? Yeah. Because here's what happens: you get to know somebody you like, and you guys are vibing, everything's great, you're enjoying that. You don't want to shake the boat, right? You don't want to like screw up the vibe, so you don't want to ask for this or ask for that. But as long as you can consistently try to be authentic and honor where you're at, then you'll know that if that person's, what happens is you'll either shut down something that isn't working for you sooner. Yeah. Or you'll fine tune it into something even better than you can imagine, But like for our other experiences, like we were taught early that we were something for someone else. Yeah. And so, organically I grew into thinking I needed to please someone else, and to be something for someone else. And so when I grew up and when I started my first relationships, I was all about, what can I give to you? What can I be for you? What do I need to serve you with? Right. So untangling that and realizing I'm a grown woman and I have needs, and here's what I can do for you, but I also have, the give and take exchange. It's all been conditioned because of these experiences.
I love talking to you. Because you make me want to cry.
Receiving is a challenge, right? Like we were talking about earlier. Like my challenge right now is, can I receive love? Can I receive understanding? Can I receive compassion? Can I receive being myself and not being abandoned? Yeah. Because I have abandonment issues like crazy. Yeah. Major abandonment issues. And
where does that stem from?
My dad, he left when I was really young. I was thrown out at 15. So there's abandonment issues there. And, I know my parents did the best they could. I don't ever want my topic or my discussion about my childhood to be an attack on my parents. Oh, yeah. Everybody comes with what they were given, and unfortunately the way that those things happened affected me, and I came to not rely or feel safe in any connection. Yeah. Eventually I got married, and then my ex-husband had a psychotic break and had checked out mentally, and so I was abandoned again after feeling really safe. And so I fear comfort zones. I fear happiness. I fear joy. I fear stability, and so I've had to organically and very specifically focus on when I'm starting to feel afraid of things not lasting. It's because I have had these experiences, and today I know that I trust myself. Like I've worked on picking stable choices. I've worked on picking safe people. I've learned to value myself. Therefore, I'm not picking people that aren't consistent in that way.
Right.
And even if they are, I have me, you know.
Yeah.
So it's just understanding myself and sitting with myself. But yeah, I don't know. That's my biggest fear, abandonment. But
and you've done so much self like mastery on yourself to get to here, you know. So you consistently do it, and it's a daily thing for you. And if you consistently work on yourself, you get to this point. You're like, hey, I know some of the issues that I do have, and it's okay because I know where I'm at. I trust myself. I love myself. I'm worth it. I'm so deserving, but I know I'm gonna be okay. But I do have these issues that I struggle with at times.
Yeah, and I know you were asking me about like my connection with angel numbers.
Yeah.
And like I talk about the universe a lot.
Yeah.
Part of that is the little girl inside me who is scared and who felt abandoned. Like in my program, you know, they tell us to pick a higher power of our understanding. You know, I was raised in the church for a little while. And I have all respect for all religions. You know, everybody's free to believe whatever they want. But I had to find a version of something bigger than me to believe in. And I feel like the universe and the earth and like the trees and the birds and the butterflies and like all of it is universally connected. And I believe like you and I are connected. And we all like share energy, right? So for me, you know, that little abandonment girl, like when I feel alone, like I'll go sit out inside under a tree and I just sit there and I suddenly don't feel alone. Like I've defined my God that way because for me, if I never feel alone, then that abandonment gets to dissipate, you know? And even if my relationship doesn't work out, I'm not alone. Yeah. You know, I feel like my grandmother's watching over me, my ancestors are watching over me, the birds are around me like the trees. There's nobody still to date that can explain to me how all of these universally work together. Yeah. You know, the way the seasons change, the way the trees continue to grow, like pain and a purpose. So for me, you know, that's my purpose, is to feel connected to everything that's happening with me all the time. People, places, things, you know, and I like the numbers, you know. Yeah. I've looked them up and stuff like that. So when I see them, like I absolutely take them as a message or a sign of affirmation or encouragement. Yeah. And if it doesn't make sense to anyone else, that's okay. Yeah. Because what I know, it's brought me peace. It's brought me a sense of connection to what's happening in my life as it happens. It's given me a sense of like understanding that it may not make sense in this moment. Right. But then 2 days later, I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. That absolutely needed to happen that way. It's the synchronicities, you know. Yes. Yes.
He always says that. That's so weird. Oh my gosh.
Like it's just wild. Like I've told you I've manifested on the new moons and the full moons, right? Like I've just.
So that was one of my questions. Is I was gonna ask her is like what brought her into angel numbers, because she's the girl. Like so a lot of people know me from 1111. So for years and years I would always talk about 1111. When I see 1111, I would show people all the time on like my stories, and I would be like, oh 1111, and so people will know me for that. Yeah. But when I met you, I was like, oh my God, she's into numbers. Yeah. And then she's into new moon. So then I would start asking her like, well, wait, when's the new moon? Like, tell me a little bit more, because I want to learn more. And I think I love that. I mean, and like how you said, everyone each to their own. There is a higher power in whatever that may be and whatever you believe in. It's just what that works for you. Like,
yeah, it's for me, it's symbolic, right? So like I've followed a few people and I've read and I've watched workshops and stuff like that. So I'm definitely like a rookie and a beginner in all things in this area, right? But what I've learned in my last 3 years of doing that is that like the new moon is like an empty cup, you know, and it's like, what are we gonna fill in it? What are we inviting into this next cycle? What do we want to create, build, or develop? When the full moon comes, it's like, what do we want to release, modify, rewrite, let go of, clear out, for when the new moon comes, we can bring in new. And it's so, the concept of that alone has been intensely powerful and like helpful to me, right? Like this is me, a recovering addict, you know, a survivor, right? Like I needed a system or a process or a concept that I can modify and adjust and change, because I have so many old patterns, so many belief systems that I need to change and to integrate joy and happiness into my life because of where I come from, right? And so that whole process has helped me, because it's got me to journal and to write down. Like I told you, I manifested a new car, I manifested the partnership I have, and I say that because if you subscribe to this whole concept, it's basically like you need to believe that something can happen before it will actually happen. And the reality is that we're very basic bitches. Like our mentalities are set to like I mean that lovingly. Please don't take that personally.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
The way that I mean that is, my thinking is so like standard sometimes, right? But like, if you would have asked me in November, and I was already in my relationship, if you would have asked me, do you think your boyfriend will buy you a brand new car? I would have said no. We're not there. Like, whatever reason, right? In January, I wrote out these things that I wanted to see for myself, and what I did is I surrendered to the outcome, and I released that manifestation, that intention, that goal, that dream to the universe, to all things possible, right? I don't know what it will look like. I don't know how it'll come together, but this is what I believe in. This is what I know can happen. I don't know how, but it can. And so I wrote it out like, I want a new car. It's going to drive up in my driveway. I'm willing to work for it. I'm willing to step into the actions of this. And it did. March 31st, a blue Nissan Sentra drove up into my, and my boyfriend bought me a brand new car. Have I bought a car for myself before? I have. But, it was my turn and my time to receive. And I let go of the how, and I stayed in alignment with receiving and being willing and feeling worthy and knowing that I deserved that, and it happened. And so when new moons happen, it's kind of like my time to sit down and look at my life. And some days it's deep and meaningful, and sometimes it's very like routine wise, and like looking at my daily structures. And I subscribe to it because it's worked for me. It's really worked for me. And at the end of the cycle, when it's a full moon, what didn't work this month? What chaos did you experience this month? What's irking you? What's tugging at your subconscious? What makes you feel uncomfortable? And I try to write it down, a few things. Some days it's super spiritual. I'm like, oh my God, I need to let go of my resentments against so and so. And some days it's like, what, I need to let go of eating crap on the weekend.
And it's always different. So the whole everything's, and that's the thing, everything's happening for you in your right timing, in your timing. And so I'm a big believer on journaling. I'm a big believer on manifestation. And I believe that universal law, if I believe this and I continue to believe and put out there exactly what I want, it will happen. And so I do, though, more than I know I should. I do get back in that rut of like, wait, am I like, I don't know. Okay, I'm looking at my bank account. Like, okay, am I gonna do? And then so sometimes I'm like, Andrea, snap out of it. Yeah. So this house, so crazy. This house I know was just meant for me. I just know it's sitting here. I knew it was meant for me. And right when I was actually looking for a house, I wrote in my journal and I said, I'm going to be living in Redlands. I'm going to purchase a house. I'm going to have a back house so I can rent it out because I need the help. Right.
You were planning the stability ahead of time.
Oh yeah, because I knew
in your soul what you needed.
I already knew this is what I need. I'm gonna have a back house. I'm gonna be able to have blah blah blah. Like, it's gonna be perfect for me at Aiden. Like, it's gonna be in a great neighborhood. So I wrote all this stuff out, and I would write it out every day. Every time I would journal. Oh, I live in Redlands. And some days, if I don't journal, I know in the back I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna live in. I'm gonna have a house, and I'm gonna have a detached garage. Like, so I would start just making up this story. And I remember the first house that I put an offer in, and I didn't get accepted on that offer, and I was just like all in a rut, right? And I was like, oh my God. And then I had to go back to myself and be like, what did I manifest, Andrea? Like, what am I told myself I was going to find something with a back house. It had a detached garage in where I wanted to live, but it wasn't what I really wanted. It was just kind of like, oh my God, like I lost something. So then I kept going on, kept journaling, so people would ask me, where do you live? And I'm like, Redlands, and it's just because it was something that was manifesting. I didn't really live here. And then I was just like,
believe it.
I was like, okay, if I just start continuously doing it. So then when I walked into this house, I was just like, this is it. I walked back here and I was like, this is it. Like, oh my, like, I just knew. And it was so odd is before I put in the offer for this one, a couple of weeks before, I was talking to this guy at the gym, and he kept saying, yeah, I just go in the pool when, because he works from home, and I just go in the pool, you should get a house with a pool, like, just friend, cool. And I was just like, why would I want a house with a pool? So I remember telling my baby, I was like, well, do you want a pool? Like, because I asked his opinion on everything, and he was like, yeah, so he was all excited, and then he was like, no, I don't want a pool, because he has to clean it, right? And then he was like, no, I don't want a pool. But then, subconsciously, I wanted a pool.
Yeah.
Literally, weeks before I found this house. And I'm like, I guess I'll have a pool. Like,
the universe is bigger than what you fathom.
So, and it's just odd, because subconsciously it's there, but did I write it out? But I believe so much, like, I can do it. I can get a house. I can get a pool. But I never really, like, wrote it out, because of the fact that I was unsure of myself. But myself was like, no, you got it. You're fine. You got it.
That's what I love about the limitations of our own mind. This is what I love about, like, this is how I believe in the universe and manifesting and stuff like that. Like, there's always going to be room for bigger than us.
Yeah.
That's where the magic's at. That's where faith and hope and all these beautiful feelings that we get to experience as humans, right? Like, that's the magic. You subconsciously thought of the pool. You didn't write it down, but that was the extras. That was the bonus.
Yeah.
You know?
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
It's so crazy, because I'm like, how did I end up with a pool?
And if you think about it a little further, what has this back house actually brought you? What other elements has it brought to you?
That's so crazy.
Right?
I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you never know. That's why you don't like you don't box yourself in with your own thinking. There's more than what you can imagine. Right? And so that's why I like to write things out. I like write out what I want, and I try to close my eyes. And sometimes I try not to think so much on the physical, superficial of, like, what things I want, as opposed to what do I want to experience? What do I want to feel? What do I need emotionally, mentally, and spiritually from this thing, right? Like, we think we want a car, right? Like, I wanted the safety and the security and the stability of a vehicle, because I was driving, like, this car that kept breaking down. You know, when I wrote about my partner that I have today, I wanted someone who could receive the love that I have, because I have a big ass heart. I got a lot to give. And I need someone who's emotionally mature, emotionally intelligent, who knows how to receive love, because I have it. Yeah. And if you don't want it, you're not going to be a good partner for me.
Right.
You know, and so when I would write about that, I would close my eyes, and I want to feel someone that's, like, tickled by the love that I have, like, that wants it. Yeah. You know, and so that's what manifesting for me is. It's like getting in touch with your inner self, like the deepest part of you, and finding what it is that you're in need of, and asking whatever you believe in, whether it's God, universe, Mother Earth, whatever. You know, like, he, she, or tree. I always tell people, like, whatever you believe in. It doesn't matter, because I believe that if God exists, right, why wouldn't he create different versions for all the differences in the world, for us to be able to wrap our brains around it, to wrap our hearts around it, you know? And so I don't judge anyone's belief system, because we all need to believe in something to some degree, and we all need hope. Yeah. Right?
And it's just that higher self, like getting in tune with your higher self. So whatever that may be, it's knowing, though, you can get to that point, and being able to ask those questions and feel free enough to be just be connected with something just so much more than you. And so that, I mean, like you said, like, not even putting just, like, those feelings of, oh, I want materialistic things, and I've, you know, done this for maybe the past 8 months or so, like 6 months, that I've actually listened on to a book, and they were the book that I just actually read. And so it's like how you feel. You said, I want stability. I want something that's going to protect me while I'm driving. I don't want to have to worry or stress like it's going to break down. And it's really when you journal and have those manifestations and you actually feel, it's how are you going to feel when you get that. So actually, he just brought that to my attention the other day. I was like, oh, I'm manifesting on my offers and da-da-da-da. And then he goes, so how would you feel right now if you got da-da-da-da-da? Like, how are you going to feel? And I'm like, yeah, I have to remember that, because I remember reading this book and I'm reading this time, and I'm just like, that's what it goes back to. How is that going to make you feel? What is that going to bring you? Like, not just the money itself, but how are you going to spend that? And so now, like, with me, I'm like, well, if I had this money, I can pay off the vendors so they can leave. If I have this money, I can help my mom just pay off her house. If I have this money, I can go on trips with Aiden. How is that feeling going to be, you know?
Yeah, you know why it's important to channel the feeling first? Is because there are several ways to get the outcome of that feeling. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be the way you visualize it. Yeah. So when you surrender into the outcome and say, I want to feel safe, secure, and stable. right? Maybe it's not, maybe you with money. Maybe someone leaves you in their will some money and you paid off those vendors.
Yeah.
Maybe you know, I don't know, right? So for
Right.
example, for me, like, I've had these experiences where I think I know how I want something to resolve. I had this bill, this debt of, it was a $999 debt, okay? And I was like kind of stressing over it for like 3 months. Just like, how am I gonna get this paid off? How am I gonna take care of this? And I kept racking my own limited thinking on how I could pay this off, right? And there was a debt forgiveness program, and they zeroed that balance out for me when I finally went to go face it. And all I manifested for that was, I don't want to have this worry anymore. I don't want to feel in debt in this way. I want to take care of it and be responsible, but it's like lingering over me. And so that was what I manifested, right? Do you know that I didn't have to pay it back?
That's so cool.
But for 4 months, I was obsessing over it until I surrendered. And I sat down to like, you know, I'm not a bad human. I just don't have the money to pay this right now. And I'm taking care of all these other things. Like, I'm an addict in recovery. So, like, the last 3 years of my life have been a lot of restorative things, right? Like, restoring, you know, things that I caused harm in with regards to my finances because of my lifestyle before I got, you know, clean and sober and all that stuff. And so I have what we call wreckage that I was cleaning up and taking care of. And so I have debts, you know, and I'm human. I can only take care of so much at a time, and also take care of my healing process, and also, you know, get to my meetings and take care of my health, right? So, you know, it's important to have grace, but at the same time, I was really bothered. Like, I want to take care of this debt. And so I put that out there. I put that out there, like, I want to be free of this worry. I want to take care of this debt, you know, and I didn't visualize getting like $1,000 from a payout in something that I was in. I didn't visualize extra work, or I just said, like, I'm in alignment. I'll take work as it comes, you know, like, I will do my action steps. But I don't know how this is going to be resolved. I just know that it can be. And it was. And it was done miraculously, because I was like, I went in there and I was like, looked at my thing, and then like there was this program listed. It was so funny. It was so crazy. What's funny is I had been seeing 999 for like a month. When I went in to look at the balance I owed, it was 999.
That's so crazy.
Girl.
And it was all, so, and that's the thing, is like, you already were like, okay, I'm gonna let go of it. And I have a very hard time to do that, like saying the right things, because that spirit is with us or something. I was like, that's so crazy. But I do have a hard time on using the right words sometimes, and actually being like, exactly kind of what you said, like, I surrender to this, like, I am a good human, and I don't want that stress or worry, and whatever how that may come, you know, just let it come up, but I'm gonna be okay with it. Like, so for me, I feel like I get stressed in moments, and then I don't focus really on, like, I have to remind myself every time, like, how is that feeling going to be? Like, okay, well, what would you take care of? Like, why do you want to do those things? Why do you want to take care of those things? And so I have to always, like, try to put myself back in check. And I think if I took more time to just, like, calm my mind a bit, I would really center myself back, and I don't give enough time to calm it.
Yeah, I'm naturally an overthinker. Like, I want to overthink everything and figure it out, and I never figure it out. I just think about it too much.
You're just in it all the time.
What does that solve? It doesn't really solve anything.
And the whole surrendering is huge for me. I feel once you surrender to whatever that feeling is, or whatever you're going through, and you just allow, hey, I surrender to this, but I know that, like, every day I'm going to work better on myself. Every day I'm going to do good. I'm going to do good by others. I'm just going to give love and be, you know, in harmony of myself, and be okay with that, instead of be, like, stuck in that same, like, feeling.
I relate because this goes back to, like, me being a part of the collective. That's why I love the concept of the universe being a collective energy of all of us, right? Like the trees, you, me. If I can imagine that all of these moving parts are working together for a good, then I'm not as responsible for as much as I think I am. You know, there's other forces and other things happening on my behalf, going ahead of me, and if I just stay in alignment, then it'll happen. It'll be taken care of no matter what. It's just a matter of not overthinking it too much, because then I put myself in a scarcity mindset where I feel like I don't have enough. I'm not capable. I don't have the resources. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that that's what overthinking does for us.
Yeah.
Because what are thoughts really but something that we're just obsessing over?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's obsessing over the wrongful things that you should be, because it's not going to do any.
Have you ever obsessively thought about something good? Nobody really does that. I don't think so. Maybe when you get a new crush, you're like, that's true. But for the most part, when we're overthinking, we're usually overthinking something that's negative or fearful, challenging or afraid. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Like that bill I'm telling you about. I swear to you, I obsessed over that. I overthought it. And all I had to do, and I was avoiding this website where you can go in and clear up the debt, right? I avoided the website for 3 months, and all I had freaking do was go on the website and see that they were offering a program, because a lot of people fell into that same category that I did and couldn't afford to pay the debt. And so there was actually a program created to help with it. And what's funny is that if I would have went on there a month before, I would have had the relief. But the fear kept me trapped, and like, I was so worried about how I wasn't capable that I didn't realize there was an opportunity out there waiting for me. I just had to surrender it, you know.
And sometimes that's like exactly how you said, the opportunity. I think for me, I've learned to take opportunities and say, I'm not saying say yes all the time if you don't feel comfortable, or say yes to things that you feel that it's not good for you, or there's some kind of, you know, blockage there. But I used to be like, no, I'm not going to, I can't, or I would just shy away from a lot of blessings, because it was opportunities on the other side where I was just blocking all of my blessings. I was like, no, and I'm like, why did I do that to myself?
Opportunity without an open mind or an open heart won't happen. You know,
I like that.
Yeah, that's my work right now, like, is keeping an open heart and keeping an open mind, because my fears tell me to shut down or defend. My heart says block, you know, like that's my experiences. So my unlearning is about that, you know, being open-minded, being open-hearted, because things can work out, right? Like, what if things don't work out? Well, what if they do? You know, and if you're closed off, then that connection can't happen. You know, opportunities are just connections waiting to happen.
And you said that we're like, well, what if it doesn't work out, right? But there's so many. Pay attention to what you listen to, what you read, what you take in. The people that you're surrounded by is so important, because you can be listening to the wrong music, you could be reading the wrong stuff, you could be listening to, like, I don't know, like, there's so many things out there that I hear out, like, in music and audibles or podcasts sometimes, and I'm just like, what? Like, I don't understand, like, you know, like, it's more of, stay away, be fearful, don't do this, you know what I mean? Like, well, be a bad bitch, like, you know, like, that, it's,
you know, kudos to all the bad bitches, right? I have that bad bitch music sometimes too, but really what it's saying is, like, I'm untouchable. And do you really want to be untouchable? Don't you want to be touched? Don't you want to feel connection? And so, like, don't get me wrong, I've had those eras where I need that music that helped me through, and it's everybody has that season. But the reality is like, right now, I have to listen to meditation music all the time, because my brain is ready to fight. Like, it's ready to defend, it's ready to be fearful, it's ready to talk myself out of anything good for me. Because that's what I'm conditioned to. So, like, I just really listen to slow my mind down, and then just be present. Which is, like, the hardest thing to freaking do. You know, is just be right here, right now, in this moment, you know. Don't future trip, don't future plan, don't pass, you know. I mean, it's important to look at these things for sure. But living there is not an option for me. You know.
So it's being more open-minded to other things that maybe, like, come into your life. Being open-minded to, like, I don't need to play the same, you know, song. I can read, or I can, you know, YouTube something and learn something, or I can, you know, meet a new friend, or, you know, get advice from other people, and having the open mind to get in touch with other people, because I would have never done that. I would never have done this if I didn't say, you know what, I'm just going to be fearless, and I'm going to freaking do it. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, I don't know if I should do this. I don't know if it, you know, people are going to watch. And it was not that for me. It was like, there's so much more. I don't care if it was one person. I just know I can touch one more person. And having an open mind was needed. I needed to have an open mind to be like, okay, who am I surrounding myself with? What am I filling my day with to get to this point where I'm at right now? you know?
Exactly. I was at a 12-step meeting and there was this biker guy, right? Like, you know, I'm in recovery, so obviously it's a 12-step meeting for addiction. And he was talking about, he was riding his bike one day and the sun was out. It was like 80 degrees and it was like perfect weather. Yeah. And he had this song playing and he's like, man, and I started to feel like I wanted to drink. And you know, and then he was like telling somebody when he got to the place he was going to, he was talking to another person in recovery and he was like, dude, I almost like wanted to pull over and drink and da 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 da. And he was like, what happened? And he's like, well, this song was playing, man, and all the nostalgia kicked in. I was back. And he's like, did you ever think about just changing the channel? And that has stuck with me so much, like, especially like with relationships, right? We have music that we put on and we're suddenly taken back to our heartbreak, or we're like reminiscing on this moment we had with this other person that wasn't right for us. Yeah. It's like, change the fucking channel. You don't have to
I just told you that.
Yes, sorry. Exactly. And so it's like change the channel. And the same thing happens with our thoughts. We can absolutely change the frequency, change the channel. Like sometimes when I'm getting in a negative headspace, I have to leave this room and go to another room in my house just to feel like there's a scenery change. Yeah. You know, and I'll do something different, or you know, like I have my own little practices to change my mindset. But you can change the channel. I mean, you can change the song.
So I never thought of that, but I was just telling Monica earlier, I was like sad the other day, and I was just like in my friggin' head, and I was like thinking about like my last relationship, and I was like sad, and I was just like in this like music, right? And I'm just like listening to it, and I'm like, but I've stayed there. Yeah. I stayed in that spot, and I was just like, it's like I wanted to be sad, but then I mean, I really don't want to be sad, but it's like I wanted to be there, but I didn't change the song. I didn't change the freaking list. I didn't change the mood. I didn't change anything. And I felt like, okay, what am I doing at that point? You know, it's like really asking yourself, like, why didn't you just change it? You know, why didn't you just make that extra step to be like, hey, okay, move on.
When we become uncomfortable, and I know a little bit about what you're going through right now, that you shared earlier. So like you're in an uncomfortable zone right now. You're in something unfamiliar. Yeah. And so the first thing we do when we get in a new experience and we start to experience things we're not used to, the first thing we do is crave the past. Because we know that. We know that devil. It's like time, place, event, person. Like when everything has to line up in such a way, otherwise you wouldn't get the specific outcome. That's the synchronicities lined up. Like, way past coincidence.
I never really like thought of like
I had a recent experience where everything was just so synchronistic. Like I needed something in the amount of, let's say, $775. I tried to give this car away to someone and it didn't work out, and on the same day they ended up picking up this car and gave me $775. Like I can't make that up, right? Like these things all lined up in such a way, and I was just like, what the heck? But if I hadn't called these people to come get the car, they wouldn't have been able to tell me how to get this they're like, oh, well, you should call this place, they'll come get it for you. Because I had to move my car in like 3 days because it was on the street. It was my old car, the one before I got my new car. And so it was just all these things had to line up. Yeah. You know, I don't know how to explain it. Synchronicities.
But that's a good way of explaining that, because when he spoke about that, I'm just like, huh? And he was like, you know, when you think about it, what would have, how, like, I would have never met you, like, how,
right, like timing meets opportunity meets you being, like, have you ever, for example, said you weren't going to go somewhere because you weren't, and then you ended up going and you ended up meeting somebody that ended up being like a big part of your life, or you needed something happen with them after that. There's just certain synchronicities that need to happen in order for something to happen. Like,
I like that. It's for something to happen in order to happen. Yeah. In like a bigger, in a bigger
picture. Yeah. So if you pan out of the experience, you realize there's these places and times in the events that happened before this thing could happen. Mm-hmm. There's other things that had to line up first, or that would have never existed. Yeah. For example, I worked at a nonprofit organization for 11 years. I really identified with this career that I had. Right. It was a beautiful job. I loved it, and I was there for 11 years. But then COVID hit, and I lost my job. I got laid off. And if I wouldn't have gotten laid off from that job, I wouldn't have made the Fierce Factory, right? Like, if I wouldn't have gotten laid off, I wouldn't have the time to realize that I needed help with my addiction. I wouldn't have gone on this journey that I'm on now to be who I am. When I said at the beginning that I was spiritually bankrupt, that means I didn't even believe in anything. So, like, you hear me talking about all the things I believe in. 3.5 years ago, I didn't believe in anything anymore. I didn't have any of this. I was just going day to day, minute by minute. You know, it was just I wanted to like not die, but I didn't want to live anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't think that everybody wants to die when they end their life. You know, I think they just don't want to exist in whatever they're existing in at that time. And so I was at that place in my life, and now here you are. Fast forward to 3.5 years. If I wouldn't have gotten laid off, I wouldn't have had been home. Yeah. And then I wouldn't have been home, and I wouldn't have considered what I could do with that time. You know, like these events in my life absolutely occurred in such a way that it led me to where I'm at today. You know, and there's a couple of specific events that are personal to me that had to happen, and the way that they happened, and the timing of when they happened, on the day that they happened, that just put me in a position to find recovery, to find my spirituality. And I call those synchronicities. Those things absolutely had to happen that way, that day, that time, that hour, or I would have missed them.
Right. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, me too. That's the bread and butter of my life, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and so with the angel numbers, I'm always looking for synchronicities.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always looking for numbers just because it reminds me that I'm not alone. It reminds me that there's bigger things happening around me at all times. It reminds me that, you know, traffic might be because I need to be delayed for some reason, right? Like, if you look at it that way, imagine being stuck in traffic for 20 minutes. Maybe you're not supposed to arrive somewhere till a specific time to run into a specific person.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And I've done that too before where it could be like a blockage or something happen, or, you know, something doesn't go as planned, and then you have to think of the brighter side. Like, oh, well, at least, you know, I'm going to make it there. Or, hey, maybe, you know, I always use the example of someone like cut you off, like, oh, it's because they cut me off because they were rushed to whatever, their wife, and she needed help. You like make stories in your head.
Yeah.
My mentor was telling me the other day, because I was like, I'm in real estate, so I would like have a hard time like asking and like, hey, do you need help with real estate, blah blah blah. And he was like, you need to, and I feel like I'm bugging or whatever, and he's like, you need to get out of your head and play a story in your head that something happened. So if someone doesn't respond, you say, you know what, they didn't respond because, I don't know, the baby had the phone, but it's okay, they didn't check it. Play the story in your head. Oh, well, they didn't answer your call at that time they said they would. Oh, well, maybe because they got another call. So if you play that story in your head, it's not like you're hurting yourself.
It sounds like he's asking you to change the narrative.
Yeah.
Basically, instead of saying, oh, they don't want my help, they don't need my services, they don't think I'm good enough,
Right.
all of these negative narratives that you come up with,
Right.
he's asking you to change the narrative.
Yeah.
Basically, write a different story.
Yeah.
Like, they just didn't have the ability to respond to you, you know?
So, and that's how I try to look at certain things that happened to me. Well, it's okay because, well, this offer didn't get accepted, but I know for this one, because that was meant for them. Or, you know, so I try to remind myself that it does get difficult at times because you're like, like, you know, pushing through on something.
It's like the way that I said about surrendering outcomes. You put in the footwork, you stand in alignment, you keep your energy where it needs to be, you do your part, and you surrender the outcome, meaning I don't know what that's supposed to turn out like.
Yeah.
And that might not turn out the way that I thought it should, but it might turn out the best way it was supposed to, because maybe the next client is going to be the perfect exchange, right? Like, I sell them their home, it's fit for them, they live their lifetime in there. You have no idea what the story looks like, right? So, you know, we can only do our part and then surrender, you know, and then trust that things will happen the way they're supposed to, the way they're meant to.
Right.
That experience I told you about the car, the $775, the part that I left out, which explains synchronicities the most, was that me and my boyfriend were both looking for the key. And for whatever reason, we spent an hour and a half looking for the key and we couldn't find it. We could not find this key. We looked up my room, like, I was praying, like, oh my God, please help me find this key. Like, I want to give this car to these people. And and they're like, you know what, it's fine. They were like, it's okay, don't worry about it. You know, just go ahead and call them to pick it up. You know, it's fine. Yeah. And so for whatever reason, the universe was like, we have the $775 you need, and we're gonna hide this key because we want you to. You needed this money, and you needed to do it this way, not the way that you planned.
Yeah.
You see, and so things had to happen and line up. That missing key was part of the synchronicity of that experience, because if I had found the key, I would have given it to them, and they probably would have sold it themselves.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I asked for help with this thing I had, and the help came in a way that I didn't expect.
Right.
and it happened in such a way that I was like, oh, I didn't plan this.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly.
And so that missing key was like one of those things that just had to happen at that moment when they needed the key.
Yeah.
And
And it's like not having those expectations. I feel we all have expectations. I have expectations all the time.
And I could have had a resentment or a disappointment because I couldn't find the key. And for a minute, I was so frustrated. I'm like, how can I find this fucking key?
Yeah.
You know, and then I stopped and I'm like, why am I not finding this key?
Yeah.
This isn't the way that, like, I'm resisting the process right now. So I looked and looked for as long as I could.
Right.
Then they left, and then as it unfolded that I had the car picked up and they offered me $775 for it, you know, I was like, that was the way it was supposed to go.
It's so
Yeah, it is. But sometimes you're like,
I know.
So yeah, it's a process.
Oh my gosh, that was a lot.
Yeah, it was.
It was such a good.
So much that your camera had to overheat.
I can't believe it overheated. Yeah, but it's a good thing. I mean, I think it's a good thing, especially when like I didn't have to look at any of my questions because I just know we have a good flow of communication in the conversation, and there's just so much that we can speak about that, you know, we're like using what we've been through and what we're doing right now, and you know, seeing those signs and being, hey, like this, you can do this too, like you can make this happen. It's okay, like it's gonna happen. Don't stress, don't worry on it. Like it's just gonna happen if you allow it, you know.
Absolutely. Okay. It's so hard to say goodbye.
It's so hard. I know. They're like, why are you leaving? No. All right.
Oh, we got this.
Yes. Okay. So thank you for everyone that was watching, that tuned in. I appreciate all of your guys' love and support. We want to just leave out the message of putting comments below. If you guys have questions or if you need help with something, please leave it in the comments so we could talk about it next time. I will be having Monica again.
Yay.
Because just it's a good conversation. The flow is right, and I feel that we have such a powerful connection that we're able to speak just like things that we need to be hearing, you know.
It's
and
organic.
so we love you guys and we appreciate you. So until next time, thank you for tuning in, and